Hello, welcome to the Opinionistics. I'm your host, John Malone. Don't have any co-hosts because of reasons, as always, sadly. Oh well. Introducing from Chicago, but currently in Texas, Deborah Chanez.
Hello there. So I can't be a co-host even for a short period of time.
Uh, I don't know how it works. There's like established co-hosts associated with the podcast. You come on here as a guest and talk about your life, what you do for a living, and your experiences and so on.
You mean I can't ask you questions?
Oh yeah, you can ask me questions if you like.
Then I can be a co-host.
All right then. All right, sounds good to me. So, how's life?
I love life. I'm 65 years old and I feel as if I'm in the prime of my life. Don't Although I don't expect another 65 years to be the same, but I'm doing beautifully.
All right, sounds good. And what is it you currently do for a living?
I do a lot of different things. I am torn in different directions. I have worked in the marketing communications field my entire life. I have been writing my entire life because of marketing communications. And I also have worked in the holistic health field for quite some time. So I am a certified yoga therapist, which most people don't really understand what it is. And I often say it's more of a therapist um, than yoga, but it's combining everything. And because of my lifelong passions for both holistic living and writing, I am now the author of a book called From the Boxing Ring to the Ashram: Wisdom for Mind, Body, and Spirit. And I take a lot of the learnings that took me, you know, again, most of my life, let's say 50 years to learn, traveling around the world, finding gurus around the world, and basically culling the best of their lessons that I can share with people so that they can have their healthiest and happiest lives. And it doesn't cost them a penny, and it's easy and it's fun. You
Okay
want to
then.
try it?
Yeah, sounds good.
And, one example, for example, is just laughing. So I'm sure you have heard the adage, laughter is the best medicine. And in my book, I chronicle my teachers' personal experiences, and then I give testimonies from my experiences, but then I also back everything up with evidence, clinical trials, research from around the world. And as a perfect example, laughing is extremely important. Laughing releases endorphins, which are natural opiates more potent than morphine. And I don't know about other countries, but in the United States, we have been having for quite some time an opioid crisis. Too many people are addicted to painkillers, and opioids, unfortunately, cause many deaths. And while I'm not saying people don't need painkillers, what they should always try to do, of course, is find the easiest, healthiest solutions first. And laughter is an incredible source of pain relief. So that's why I say, if you want, try laughing right now. I'm going to laugh right now. And I know it may sound weird, to laugh at nothing. But what is really interesting is one of the clinical studies found that simulated laughter is even more effective than natural instantaneous laughter.
Nice.
And who doesn't enjoy laughing? And again, it's free, it costs you nothing, and you feel good about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what else do you do?
In terms of as a profession or my private life, in terms of what I do in off time or,
Anything.
okay, well, I off time, and fortunately it somewhat links to my profession, is I am an avid reader. I actually just posted on the Goodreads site, which is for people that like to hear what other people are reading, and you can comment on books. And I just posted what is on my to be read stack. And unfortunately, I'm a minimalist. I really am a minimalist, but I can't turn away a good book. And so I always have a lot of books that are on my shelf to be read.
Huh.
But that's a pretty healthy pastime.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. Are you much of a reader?
Well, I don't read much books, but I do read a lot of articles online and watch a lot of other videos in relation to the development of society, you know?
Oh, yes. Yes. And that's interesting you say that because I tend to be more interested in nonfiction books. So, in terms of the development of society. And also, I actually have a degree in social anthropology. And so, that is, of course, looking at society around the world and society today versus other generations. And I find that fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
Um, I would love, so of course, there are a lot of people that talk about the power of visualization and of um, you know making having positive affirmations and visualizations so that things will come true. And I when I left the corporate world, or before I left the corporate world, I read a book that kind of had tips about how you can plot out the future that you want. And following that book, I filled out all of these different, 3 by 5 cards with the prompts that they gave me. And then I went back to those cards maybe 5 years later, and I saw that 90% of what I had written out had come true. And I never thought about anything again about what was on those cards. I filled them out, almost like a homework assignment, put them in a drawer, and didn't think about them. And yet they all came true, almost all. So, to answer your question, I am an avid traveler. I would love to split my time traveling around the world. Well, let's put it this way. I oftentimes work for a specific period of time in one country and then another. Last year, I spent 3 months working in Italy. This year, I'm spending 1 month working in Costa Rica. So I would like to see myself dedicated to writing. In 15 years. I would like to say that I am writing my fourth or fifth book. And from a quiet, peaceful place, I don't know necessarily where I want to be, but let's just say, because I was there last year, let's say somewhere in Tuscany.
Oh,
How does
Tuscany.
that sound?
Sounds good.
Yeah,
So, I've also heard you're a yoga therapist.
correct. So I have been a yoga instructor. I've been a practicing yogi or yoga practitioner most of my life. I got um, I got my first taste of yoga when I was very young to deal with back pain, chronic back pain, and digestive disorders. So I found that the physical yoga practice was extremely beneficial for my low back disorder, pain and chronic pain. And breath work and meditation were the only things that really helped my digestive disorders because those were stress related. So much in life is stress related. And so that's why I got involved with yoga very young, and I practiced it all the time. And I got much more serious about it after I turned 50. And one of the reasons why was I didn't want to, we can't turn back the clock, but we can age in a healthy way, and we can prevent some of the negative side effects of getting older. And I recognized that it was so important for me to step up my health and wellness lifestyle, even though I always have been into health and wellness. So that was why I became a yoga instructor after I turned 50. And then I continued learning, and I was not familiar with yoga therapy, but I found a yoga therapy training weekend in Florida, and it coincided with when I had to be in Florida for work, like the following Monday. And so this was on a weekend. So it was perfect location, perfect timing. And I knew I liked yoga, so I went and I attended this one weekend yoga therapy training. And after that, I said, I'm going to continue. And I returned to Florida periodically for 3 years to complete my training in yoga therapy. So it's much more advanced than yoga instruction. A lot more complicated, and you also have to do a lot of work with clients. Everything with yoga therapy is one-on-one.
That sounds good. So, and how long have you been doing yoga for?
I would say it's about 50 years now. And again, when I say yoga, I refer to the physical practice along with breath work and with meditation. Because oftentimes I would just focus on one of those elements, in particular breath work and meditation, because I found, again, when I had stomach issues, I found that the breath work and the meditation were the only things that would help me. And that's why in my book, 2 of my chapters actually talk about the benefits of meditation. The very first chapter in my book features one of my teachers who is based out of Mexico. And the main thing that I learned from him is that meditation, you don't have to be sitting, still for an hour to be meditating. I have so many different practices of meditation. I have walking meditation. Reading is meditation for me. I have mantra meditation. And in general, just being mindful. So if you practice mindful eating, that can be a meditation. In other words, meditation, or mindfulness rather, should be more of a lifestyle practice. And again, it's free, it's enjoyable, and the proven benefits are incredible. And the second chapter of my book, From the Boxing Ring to the Ashram, Wisdom for Mind, Body, and Spirit, the second chapter features a neuroscientist, PhD, who has been researching yoga and the brain for approximately 30 years. I know of no one in this world who has researched yoga and the brain as long as he has. And it's fascinating in terms of what physical yoga does to the brain, what meditation does to the brain, what breath work does to the brain, and what relaxation does to the brain. And ideally, yoga encompasses all 4 of those elements. And of course, 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2, 1 plus 1 equals 3. So when you have a physical yoga practice, and sometimes I refer to that as movement therapy. So if you have a physical yoga practice with the breath work, with the mindfulness component, and with the relaxation, it's really incredible what it can do. And again, I'm not just saying, oh, I felt better, but yes, I did, but I'm talking about what the research has proven.
Oh, okay. I would never expected 1 plus 1 equals 3. That
Oh,
is
well,
that's
that's
news to
because you're
me.
used to calculators. You have to get rid of your calculator.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes,
Go
because
with the flow is what they say.
well, a calculator will tell you 1 plus 1 equals 2, but no.
But could 1 plus 1 also equal 3, 5, maybe 7, perhaps?
Yes, especially it depends, I guess, on how much effort you put into it. So if you put a lot of effort into it, yes, why not? Maybe it can equal 7.
Okay. Okay, actually makes sense now. I can see going with the flow is the way to go.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
Exactly.
that's interesting.
But if you think about it, you know, it's like cumulative effects, right? So if let's just say I'm just gonna give a completely different analogy. Let's say in my coffee I like sugar. And so if I put sugar in, maybe it tastes like a 5 from 1 to 10, right? But then if I put sugar and milk in my coffee, instead of it going from 5 to 6, maybe it's absolutely perfect and it's a 10 for me.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
creative math.
yeah, very good, very good. This is coming from the top of my head, really. Have you ever thought about having access to the internet through Wi-Fi from literally anywhere you go, even the most rural of areas?
Definitely. I, I have well, right now, I live in a very rural area. And in fact, when I moved here, it wasn't all that long ago. And when I moved here, the cable company didn't have their fiber optics all the way down my street. So I was like, little by little, they brought it one house closer to where I live. And then they finally brought it to where I live. And again, I mean, I have lived, worked, traveled all over the world. And I, it's amazing how much connectivity there is. And I'm lucky because my cell phone service has good, um, good, good service around the world. And yes, and that's one of the reasons why in 15 years, hey, maybe I'll be writing my fifth book from Italy.
All right, love it.
Or here's another idea. I'm actually an Airbnb host as well, where I live, which I mentioned is a rural area. And I'm on 2 acres, and there's a stream that goes through my backyard, and I have a meditation labyrinth, and I have a tree house. And before my Wi Fi service was good, right? Before, they brought the fiber optics to where I live, it was a little spotty. And I remember I had guests once for New Year's they were actually from Italy. And they went into my treehouse to call their family in Italy to get a better signal. So, yeah, why not? And I remember once in California, at one of the ashrams that I mentioned in my book, there are several ashrams that I refer to in my book. And this one in California, I remember the first time I went there, this would have been 15, 20 years ago. And so Wi Fi was not as, as good back then as it is now. And we were in a remote area. And if I needed to use my phone or send an email, I had to walk up a hill because, of course, there was better reception.
All right then. That's good. Fabulous. So, if you had 500 acres of land, what would you use it for?
Great question. First of all, I would not want 500 acres of land because it is too much to handle and I don't know what I would do with it. But something that I read about a powerhouse couple, and I will tell you who they were, but afterwards. But what they did is they bought probably, I don't know, maybe 1,500 or 2,000 or 4,000 acres. Who knows? They had a huge, huge amount of land, and they converted it into. Well, they didn't convert it, but they respected it and they protected it as almost like a wildlife refuge. I don't remember what kind of animals in particular. And I understand that they no longer have that property, that they did sell it. So now I'm not going to tell you who the power couple was. I want you to guess, but the female was a very popular American actress from especially in maybe in the 1970s, but even most recently, she had a very popular show that was on, I don't know if it was Netflix, but it was a series like that. And the husband, I don't know if they're still married, but the husband was a powerhouse businessman from the United States. So I don't know if you have any, if you want to take a stab and guess at it.
Oh my gosh, it's so vague, to be
Okay,
honest.
I'll give you more hints.
All right.
The actress was the daughter of an actor, and I believe her brother was also an actor. And I'm going to give you a big, big hint if I can think of the correct name of that series that was very recently on. Again, I don't know if it was Netflix, but it was a series, and it was called something like Frankie and something. And she co-starred with Lily Tomlin. So that's a big hint.
Oh, wow. How big is that rock I've lived under?
The show was called Frankie and Grace. So if do you give up?
To be honest, I don't even know what it is to begin with. So yeah, I give up
Okay.
completely.
It was Jane Fonda and Ted Turner. Ted Turner was the creator behind CNN and many other global television networks.
Oh, okay. I still wouldn't have gotten that, to be honest.
Right. But I thought it was really interesting what they did with all their land. But what I do, one of the reasons why I moved to where I am with two a little more than 2 acres is it also serves as a mini retreat center. And I have periodic retreats. I can have up to 12 guests, and my retreats, of course, tend to be therapeutic. Um, I have, I do a lot of different workshops. One of the other workshops that I do is called First Love Yourself. Another workshop is called Gutsy Yoga, and it's all about digestive health. Another one of my workshops is called Dem Bones, and it's to have healthier, stronger bones and less pain. So it's perfect for people with any kind of arthritis or osteoporosis. And one of the chapters in my book is also all about chronic pain, and in particular low back pain. And my teacher from that is an MD who is, again, I would say the leading researcher in structural yoga and alleviating structural and neurological pain.
Sweet. Another question from the top of my head. Have you ever heard of the bourgeoisie?
Well, I definitely know that term, yes.
Oh, okay. That's
And
something been
of
been.
course, I know it's a French word, and
Oh yeah.
and I know it has to do with class. But yes,
Okay, that's interesting to know. If you could live anywhere else in the world, where would it be?
there are so many places that I love, and one place that I have always wanted to return to live or for extended periods of time is Mexico. I do consider Mexico my second home. I've been traveling alone to Mexico since I was 16 years old. And one of the teachers in my book that I mentioned before, the one who focuses on meditation and mindfulness, he is based out of Mexico, and I have probably spent 5 or 6 months total at his yoga center in Mexico. I love Mexico. I am a fluent Spanish speaker, and I've been speaking Spanish, most of my life. I feel very much at home in Mexico, and where this one teacher of mine, where his yoga center is it's off the grid on the beach. So it's a absolutely phenomenal location, and it's about an hour and a half from the nearest city. So that is one place that I always have thought about retiring in Mexico. And the other place that I have been to several times, and I've worked there, I believe it was 2 years in a row, I worked there, is Nicaragua. And Nicaragua is just filled with natural beauty in terms of the lushness, the vegetation. There are incredible volcanoes. It's gorgeous. And then, of course, I did mention that I'm going to be spending a month this year working in Costa Rica, and I have been to Costa Rica for work and for pleasure, possibly 12 times already. So many times I've been to Costa Rica.
Ah, very good. That's nice.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And then, but again, I live in Texas now, and even though I have always loved moving around, I I still consider, I still anticipate that I will stay fairly rooted in Texas.
Very good. Have you considered living off the grid for a long periods of time?
Sure. As I mentioned, where I was in Mexico, I probably spent about 5 months off the grid there, and I thought it was very easy. There was nothing lacking. For 21 years, I lived in another city in Texas, and I did have solar power, so that can be considered off the grid to some extent. And where I live right now, I have well water. And again, traditionally, well water and solar power are some of the major elements of being off the grid. I, to me, it's, because I am a yogi and a yoga therapist, and because I see things very differently sometimes than other people. And I believe that it is essential to be close to nature. I believe it's essential to have green, whether it's green around you or if you're in the desert, brown around you, but as opposed to skyscrapers and as opposed to all the congestion of traffic. So, right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm looking out my windows and I see so much green. It's just incredible. And of course, it's so important to get a dose of sunlight every day and to be in the fresh air. All of those things are so important for the physical health and the emotional health. So I'm totally in favor of being less reliant on municipal water supplies or municipal electricity. Yes.
Okay, fabulous. And that is all we have for this episode. It was great having you here, Deborah, talking about your works as a yoga therapist, uh, being a traveler, hosting your Airbnb, going off the grid in Mexico, and a lot of other things. It's been fabulous.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your interesting, thought-provoking questions.
You're welcome. And until next time, stay opinionated.